All right, so one of the things that we've identified is that our body has a stress response syndrome or system. And this was developed by a guy named Hans Selye. Okay, you definitely need to know this name and be able to recognize this name independently as well as along with his theory. So the body's stress response system is something that we know that happens, and it kind of happens in all of us. So basically, when encountering a sudden trauma or other stressor, our body acts to increase our resistance to threat and to harm. So our body's stress response system really is a protective mechanism. So the first phase of this is the fight or flight sympathetic nervous system response in reducing pain and increasing the heart rate. Okay, so our fight or flight kicks in. Okay, the core of the adrenal glands produce norepinephrine and epinephrine, which is adrenaline. Okay, now this system, which was identified by Walter Cannon, gives us the energy to act. So our initial response to stress is this arousal. Okay, let's go. What's going to happen next? We need to get ready. We need to protect ourselves. Now, phase 2, the brain sends out signals to the outer part of the adrenal glands to produce cortisol and other stress hormones. These focus us on planning, adaptive coping strategies, and resisting defeat by the stressor. So again, Hans Selye, this name that you really need to make sure you know, identified this extended resistance of the stress response by the following. Exhaustion, okay, or followed by, I'm sorry. So he identified we have this extended resistance phase, okay, and then the next part is exhaustion kicks in. Then again, you guys know this well. So another way to look at this is, and this is called the general adaptation syndrome or GAS. Okay, so if you see GAS, okay, you should make sure that you Hans Selye, important name because they do like to ask you what did Hans Selye, create, and then that obviously would be the general adaptation syndrome. So basically, our stress response system defends, then fatigues, right? So we have our initial stressor, right? We have our stress resistance kind of in the middle. Okay, the initial stressor occurs. We kind of have a little dip as our body's mobilizing all of its resources to fight off whatever the stressor is. Okay, and then we have a huge stress resistance. This is like, some people talk about the high they get when they're stressed and how I work better when I'm under stress and I can do better when I'm under stress because, I feel like my body can go and you can stay up and you kind of feel focused. Well, that's because your body has all these hormones and neurotransmitters kicking in that historically we're supposed to keep you awake and alert and aroused to fend off the enemy. Well, in our current everyday, stressors typically aren't life-threatening stressors. They're typically kind of things like hassles, our own procrastination, things like that we don't necessarily need all of those resources to use. Okay, but our body still responds to them in the same way. So we go into this high, this high stress resistance that we keep, this phase 2, but we can only keep it up for so long. And then either the stressor ends or our reserves become depleted, and then we fall down into this exhaustion phase where our resistance to stress is very, very low. And this is why we tend to see you get sick after a highly stressful period in your life. After finals, a lot of people end up getting a cold after finals. After homecoming week, we see this huge increase in sickness. Well, because your body's stress resistance is so low, your immune system is so low, and so you have a difficult time fighting off diseases and illnesses, and you can't respond to stress well. Every little thing becomes a big deal. Something that over here you could have totally just kicked off and been like, no big deal, I'll deal with it when I can. Well, because you're so depleted, everything becomes a big deal. Okay, so this general adaptation syndrome, again, general adaptation syndrome, Hans Selye, the 3 phases: alarm, resistance, exhaustion. You have to know these phases: alarm, resistance, exhaustion. Okay, and then basically alarm is mobilizing resources, resistance, coping with the stressor only for so long, and then obviously your reserves become depleted. All right.